Natalia Kovach, Deputy Head of Department from NIPIStroyTEK, Russia, Moscow, will tell us about the creation of ortho images from digital thermovisual photography data.
Здравствуйте.
Hello. Thank you for the introduction. My pleasure. Today, I'd like to tell you about one of our projects which we did for engineering work in Teva, in the Republic of Teva. On one slide I have information about what equipment we used. This is all the equipment that we have in our institute. For this project we used laser scanning devices, Regal, LMS Q680i, and thermovisual camera FLIR SC7700. The peculiarity of this project lies in the fact that with a short distance of 315 kilometers, most of its part, 270 of it, was in the mountainous area, in the Sayan Mountains, with the elevation difference of up to 800 meters. And the 1000 scale aerial photography, which was required by the customer, posed certain difficulties if you do it using conventional methods. To get a high density of laser reflection points, we used recently developed and just announced by Regal the real-time model, MTA model. I would like to tell you a little about MTA. To increase the number of laser reflection points per meter of surface, we use the multi-time effect, which means that during the imaging we emit more than one impulse per time. It's not one impulse emitted and then we wait for its reflection, but the impulses are emitted in packages and they return in the same way. But for conventional photography that creates difficulties, because for the correct estimation of distance, starting from the emission of impulses and its acquisition back, you need to do imaging in the clearly identified altitude corridors. If you lose the corridor, then the data would be wasted or lost. You will need to do another flyby. The new module allows us to not to pay too much attention to this altitude corridor, and in this way, in mountainous area, this is very good, and it can save a lot of flight time. One can fly at any altitude by using the maximum frequency of scanners. We used 400 kilohertz, and it allowed us to maneuver a lot and change the altitude and do new flybys in the same, and not to do new flybys in the same place. See what the area looks like with the module and without it. You can see that without the module, when we rise beyond certain altitude corridor, we lose the information. Our points turn out to be somewhere below, and this way we cannot use them for these laser reflection points for DTM generation. But when we use this module, all the points are calculated correctly and the whole area is correctly depicted and visualized, and there is no need to do new flybys. In general, as far as this project is concerned, it allowed us to save at least 50% of flight time, which is a great advantage, and it saves a lot of time and energy and money. It was our first testing. Aside from testing how this module works, we acquired very good results, and based on the results of this project, I can tell you that it is worth it. The module does work. The second peculiarity of this project was that aside from the classical LiDAR imaging, which was required by the customer for the 1000 scale, they requested also thermovisual imaging. And thermovisual imaging was a small byproduct. That's why there was no possibility to do the additional imaging of this surface with a large format, full-size thermovisual camera. Instead, we selected a different option. By using the same regular platform, we have installed a small thermal camera FLIR. And as long as everything was within the same platform, it allowed us to know exact positioning and use the data of GPS for synchronization of time. Characteristics of the camera and the characteristics of the aerial imaging system. The ground sampling distance at about altitude of 800 meters was 1 meter. 1 meter ground sampling distance. And these are the examples of the acquired images. These are laser scanning reflection points and aerial photography and thermal imaging. Everything was done simultaneously, I repeat again, under the same conditions. After the imaging session, we built orthophoto plans, used classical or conventional methods to build orthophotos, and then when we have processed thermovisual, we had to calibrate the camera also, which was done by our institute at our calibration stand. We have calculated calibration parameters for it, the elements of internal and external orientation. For that we used specialized stand, and on this slide you can see exactly what results it shows before and after calibration. At the entry point we had thermal vision data, which was then converted into frames with the single scale for the whole project. These data were united with GNSS data and with the data of DTM acquired after the laser scanning. And also for better interpretation, we use classical orthophoto. These are the same stages which are described here. For example, we show two images in the visual and thermal bands. And we did photo triangulation of the images and also transformation of the acquired thermal images and build the thermovisual mosaic. In the same way, the data of thermovisual data were merged with orthophotos for better interpretation of over-inundated areas, which were the main focus of attention of the customer. They were looking for permafrost areas, fen mires and bogs, and those were important factors for the construction of railroad, and any kind of inundation increases the subsequent costs of construction. That is why to make sure that the surveyors do proper analysis and field surveys of these inundated areas, which would be acquired as a result of thermovisual. As an output, we got thermal visualization with the resolution of with ground sampling distance of 1 meter and RMS 1 meter. And here you can see the image with the use of one of the filters which was applied for the interpretation of different objects. In conclusion, I can tell you that the use of This thermovisual cameras helps us to address narrow tasks of acquisition of thermal visual images, inexpensive thermal images when the customer has no resources to order high-quality thermal vision. And in conclusion, a small slide about our project activities. A lot of mountains, a lot of interesting places and locations. Very beautiful. But perhaps that's all I had to tell you. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was very interesting. Are there questions? Tell me, please. So eventually, what did you find out with the thermal vision? What did you detect with your thermal vision as a result? What were the results of that thermal visualization? We detected inundated areas, like wetlands, you mean? Yes, wetlands. I showed on one of the slides here, not necessarily wetlands. For instance, in this particular case, this is some sort of, turns out, it's a septic tank or something. In ORTHOPHOTO, it wasn't clearly seen, but the thermal visualization allowed us to clearly identify the wetlands or inundated areas. But when we came there, we saw the ponds. But what about laser scanning? Wouldn't that be enough? In this particular case, it's not water, but just waterlogged earth. What else did you detect? We also detected just over-inundated lands, concealed water streams, which are not clear with regular imaging, and we continue to do some research on permafrost. We had some ideas, but we still do some field checking. So without field checking, it's not possible. Well, a thermal visor doesn't give you 100% certitude. So without interpretation, you cannot do this. You cannot use its data automatically without interpretation. No. Well, interpretation sometimes is clear and objective, but sometimes we need to do field studies, field survey. But the results were satisfactory. Well, they were satisfactory for our customer. It's a narrow task, of course. Normal thermal vision imaging is done by different cameras for different tasks, and then it's done separately. It cannot be done in combination with throughout the whole day when the light changes. But for this particular task, it was and it was done in the daytime. Daytime, yes, not at night. No, not at night. It was done daytime. And you fought the noises too, right? You subdued the noises. Yes. Well, like in time, really. It still wasn't clear for me. Was it a problem with the regular? Because you can do the planning using the landscape or relief, and the relief planning will help you do properly. Yes, the relief planning was done, and then there will be no lost things. Well, there was relief planning, and the flight time cost was estimated, but still it would be 50 times more flight time than what we had eventually. Leica has the same thing. Tell me, please, once we did also thermal visioning, we had the following problem. The thermal camera provided interlaced images, and when during the movement, and the speed was quite high, it was quite complicated image. We had to split it into half frames to get at least some geometrically acceptable image. Did you have such a problem with interlaced imaging? Perhaps we had different camera, but progressive imaging would be much better. Anyway, second question about in the same project we encountered such a difficulty one. Our ground control points on thermal images and regular images were very hard to detect because they were very different. For instance, we always encounter a situation when It doesn't correlate with anything, and not with a single channel. Did you encounter this problem? Yes, it was a problem. Well, it is one of the problems, but still we managed to find all of them, the required number of ground control points. We just found them. Yes, we found them. But it was a difficult thing to do. Thank you very much. Yes, we have IMU Planix system, and they also have similar problems there. Gemini Planix. Let us thank again Natalia for a very informative report.